I hope you can hear me well. I'm Aga. It's very nice of you to be here on the last presentation in this day, a very long day. This is Marcin.
Hello.
We will talk to you about the experience we've had at Snowflake so far. We've been working there for over 2 years together. And we'll start with a short introduction. So before Snowflake, I was working at a software house called Polydia for 5 years. And the last 2 years there, I was leading a design studio we've built as a part of the whole agency. So most of my experience was around actually building products for different clients and working in the typical software house processes and methods. So it was a big difference for me to switch to product design and working in a single product when Snowflake acquired us as a company. So I will share that experience with you today. And in my private time, I'm a tiny house owner and a DIY beginner. So if you want to chat about that, I'm even more excited to do so. And this is Marcin.
Thank you. So I used to, I'm working at Snowflake for 2 years. Before that, I used to work at Google, where I was managing the teams working on data analytics and compute products. And this is my first days at Google. And before that, I used to work at Philips in the Netherlands, where I spent 9 years. And I work on this is one of the medical devices I work on. It's called Philips Azurion. It's like interventional X-ray. It's used during operations. And you have one of these devices here in Krakow in John Paul II Hospital. So it's launched. Fun fact about that part was that doing usability testing, we did usability testing with live radiation, so we have to wear LED aprons, and also I have to wear dosimeters. This is my dosimeter in here. So that was a lot of fun doing usability testing of that. And privately, I love sailing and I love growing kumquats, none of which I'm good at, but this is what I love. And this is what we're going to talk about today. So we want to tell you more about what Snowflake is, because we know quite a lot of people don't know what Snowflake is actually, and also the role of design in achieving great success, which came with the IPO of Snowflake, which was basically like one of the biggest tech debuts in the history of Wall Street. And then Aga will share her perspective on working directly as a senior product designer. And I will share my experience as a manager, managing quality within this company. And none of which we're going to talk about, none of the perspective we share, it's our own. It's not supposed to be like an advertisement. So we also like, those opinions are our own and not of our employee, and we hope that will make it interesting. Let's start with what Snowflake is. Before I will talk more about what the product is, I want to tell you what kind of challenges we're facing and what problem for the world we're trying to solve. So basically, as a humanity, we entered zettabyte era. It was about 10 years ago. The amount of information which humanity creates went beyond 1 zettabyte. This is basically humanity went a long way from libraries to data centers, which changed everything. Before, and this growth is it's geometric. So basically, it's like every year the amount of information is growing immediately. Only this year, we're going to manage, as a humanity, 120 zettabytes of data. This is including all your emails or the fun pictures on, I don't know, Twitter, all YouTube videos, all TikToks, and everything which companies create for the daily operation. And this 120 zettabytes is very hard to imagine. So this is the number here. You can see the number here. But just to better picture it, let's imagine for a second that you have you have a pile of the stack of coins, and each coin is 1 bit. So 120 zettabytes. That would mean like how big the stack will be. Can you try to, if you can, we can just pause for a moment and try to imagine how big it would be. Like that would be like, that would actually, the stack of coins, if we would put like, for each bit in zettabyte, only 120 zettabytes, we would put 1 coin. The stack would expand out of the galaxy. It would have like 300,000 light years of length. That's the 120 zettabytes. So it's a lot of information we, as a humanity, create and handle every year, basically. And our challenge, which we're facing, is we trying to, out of all of this data, we help companies and organizations to extract information which they can then generalize into knowledge. And thanks to that knowledge, they can extrapolate what will happen in the future in such a way they can make wiser decisions. And Snowflake is data cloud. We say it's a data cloud. So it stems from the data warehouse, which like a software which allows you to, basically it's a type of database, a very connected database, which every company has. And it allows this company to answer business questions. It's not like a technical database, which most of the people think, when think about database, they're thinking about something like MySQL. This is more like an analytical database, which is being used by the business users. And therefore, like, and what Snowflake is especially good at was that Snowflake helped the organization expand beyond the silos of the single organization. What we did very well at the very beginning was that we allowed people to collaborate over data and share information between companies, which allowed way more creative applications of data than before, which was never possible before. And we can see that, for example, in global like the analytics firms, which can evaluate the volume of trade of particular, let's say, a harbor, by looking at, without really looking what's inside these containers. You can evaluate, you can estimate using data, using different data sets. You can actually build a model which predicts whether this ship is empty or not, based on, for example, the size of the width of the shape in the specific of the shadow which you see here. You can actually evaluate what this ship is transporting. And this way, company can evaluate, for example, whether the global trade is ramping up or not. And you can make investment decisions based on that. There are other examples, more like in social services. For example, NHS is using Snowflake features, collaboration features, to purchase data sets from weather providers and from traffic providers, and therefore they can better dispatch the ambulances, and they can better coordinate all the emergency services basically better working together. So they exactly know the minute the ambulance will arrive, and they can also route the ambulance in a more optimal way. So there's a lot of applications of Snowflake. And Snowflake from the very beginning was designed for simplicity. It was initially not designed for like everybody. Initial target was like mostly data engineers. But it was designed for simplicity, and at the beginning understood as technical simplicity. Two founders of Snowflake, Benoit and Thierry, French immigrants who worked at Oracle, decided to leave Oracle and decided we want to build a type of database, that type of data warehouse, which is different than what they've seen at Oracle. And they were soon joined by the Polish native Marcin Rukowski, and they become like the first three founders of this company, and they created a first truly cloud-native data warehouse engineered for simplicity. By cloud-native, what we mean by cloud-native is like it was built for the cloud, which allowed back then the technical users to to basically do not care about what's, like just use the system without really thinking about underlying infrastructure, about service, about choosing, they could just start and use it as a service from the very beginning. But none of the founders were, they were not none of them were designers. And what they noticed is that the world is changing from the paradigm of using data in the companies is changing from situation where it's mostly domain of technical people to the situation where it's more and more becoming a domain of business people, because everybody is supposed to use data to drive business decisions. And none of the founders were designers, and they realized, hey, we need to build something which is more suitable for regular business users. And what they did is basically this is how idea of building Snowsite, which is our new UI for Snowflake, came in. And since none of them were specialists in this field, they decided to acquire a small startup. And that's interesting because that was it's a very rare case when technological company actually do the first acquisition, not for the specific technology, like AI, but for the UI, and more specifically for the team which built Numeracy, which was just few people who built very successful BI tool made for the masses, basically. And this helped us to move from this. This is how we used to, our UI used to look like when it was designed by the engineers, to this, which is how it looks today. And this is just one page. I will show you more soon. But generally, this change created the perception in the industry that Snowflake is not only efficient, but also it's very easy to use. And our customers, we had this unprecedented started to build this unprecedented customer loyalty. And they started saying, our customers started saying that once you go Snowflake, you actually never go back because you don't want to go back to old ways. So people, and we have some data which shows, so we can tell you more about this data. So 100% customers recommend Snowflake to other customers. And this is not only just last year, it's actually happening for last 5 years. This is not our research, it's external research done by Dresdner. Our NPS is similar to NPS of consumer products. And probably number doesn't tell you anything unless you know that the average in the industry is 21. So it's so we are kind of way ahead NPS. Of course, NPS is not only measure of user experience, it's measure of general customer experience, but user experience, and we know that from a lot of sources that it's one of the critical reasons why it's so. So this is the customer satisfaction. This was largely driven by early investment in the UI. And in 2021, Snowflake went public. So we decided to go to Wall Street and become a public company. Went IPO, and at that time, that was nobody actually expected that it will be this IPO will be such a big success, because it was a small technological company still, very growing fast, but yet didn't know. But there was a lot of investors who realized that this will be a critical, basically using data will be critical component of every business, virtually every business. So even investors who traditionally don't invest in technology companies, like Warren Buffett, invested in Snowflake. And that was basically a big splash in the news. And Snowflake so far is the largest software IPO in the history. And it's the same Wall Street where we have Google, Microsoft, IBM for 100 years, and many other companies. So unprecedented growth, and that's what happened. To large extent, that happened through early investment in customer experience and also early investment in the UI. That's very rare, I think. So Aga will tell you more on how Snowflake works.
just very briefly so that you get a better understanding of what we actually do on a daily basis and what is the core flow. So you can imagine as a data scientist or data engineer, you would come to Snowflake and bring the data that your company is gathering. So you would have a database that is constructed by views, tables, has its own schema, and you could preview that in the UI. But you could also bring other external data and join it with yours. So for example, if you're analyzing how the weather is impacting your sales, you could take the free publicly available data from our marketplace and join it with your sales data and see what's the result. And you would do that in the worksheets. That would be the main space that you work at, and you type SQL queries to ask questions to the data that you have. And then to share it with other folks in your organization, you would build a dashboard or a native app, so something with a UI that people can actually interact with. And that would be your way to talk to business stakeholders in your organization. And that's the extremely simplified core flow of the whole application. And now we go to the part of actually sharing the experience that we've had. So from my side, the very first thing that I noticed is that it's very different to work in a company that actually has very well-defined principles and is really using those principles to judge design or to say which project or product decision makes sense and which is not aligned with the vision. So one of the very main principles from the product perspective is no knobs, which means that we resist presenting customers with knobs and take ourselves on the often more difficult work of assessing what is best for a given use case. So if you imagine working with data, there can be many filters, many different concepts that you could introduce, because it's all based on some technical decisions and technical features. But we really want to limit the number of decisions that people have to make to actually interact with the UI. And at the same time, we have to make sure that we build trust and security around the product so that people don't feel like we're hiding some options or some costs or anything. So the flexibility has to be there, the transparency has to be there without being too overwhelming. So it's a difficult balance. And I will show you how I work with that principle in mind. So this is a part of the design that I actually did a while back. So it's the first iteration that we did for analytics of the provider studio. A provider is someone who is selling or publishing a data product to the marketplace. It means that I have a database, and as a company, I want to monetize it somehow. And then after people actually use that data product, I would like to know how many people used it, how often do they come back. So any metrics that I would typically have for an analytics and a software, I would be interested in. And the first design that we did actually has quite a lot of knobs. So as you can see in the upper part, hopefully, there's quite a lot of filters. The navigation is pretty heavy. So before you actually interact with this UI, you kind of have to know what information or what insight you can take from this analytics. Because every analytics experience would be based on questions and answers, right? I want to know how many people use my data product. So from this, we actually went to a dashboard that is a little bit more guided. So instead of presenting you with a with a chart and a table with a lot of filters, we actually present insights that are already guided by us. So most queried listings, most active consumers, something that is easier to interpret. And then our future thinking, and this is just an exploration, but we will head towards presenting also a very consumer-facing, like consumer 360 view. So you can analyze a customer by customer and see what they do with your data. And the decisions that we make here are based on the needs of business users. So the fact that they are mostly sales folks that are actually interested in funnels and lead generation and everything that a typical sales engineer or salesperson would be interested in. And the other thing that guides us is the design principles, and that is a little bit closer to us and actually defined by our design team. We have some posters designed by our visual designer, Milka. So I will just briefly walk through it. So it works for 0 to 10K, so scalability, and no seams, build trust with every interaction, consistent by default, innovative when justified, and give users superpowers. So with trust, as I was speaking about nubs, right, this is the balance that we're looking for to make sure that we build trust with every interaction, but at the same time simplify the number of choices for people. And we have those principles in our posters, our MacBooks, just to make sure that they are actually printed in us, and they very often come up during design critiques or design reviews. We also have some guidance when it comes to hiring and what we judge in design and what we consider as good quality design. We also use that for our internal critiques. So of course, usability, speed, so performance, simplicity, thoroughness, which is quite challenging because our customers can have very little to very large amounts of data, and the UI really has to work for both cases and will look very differently for those cases. Seamlessness, consistency, limiting the number of mental models, so again, quite challenging with data and technology. Visual fundamentals and avoiding junk, so any broken UI or something that's lagging or disruptive in the UI. And another project to share for something more specific. The design challenge I actually recently had was the role-based access model. So Snowflake is based on the role-based model. So it means that every user will have a role assigned. And based on that role, they will be able to do different things. And that's, of course, for a larger organization, it's very useful that they have the security that not everyone can do everything. And there is an admin in every organization who is administrating those roles and users. And they need to understand what roles are available in their organization, who has which role assigned, and what role would make sense for a particular person. Each role has privileges that allow them to do different tasks. So the understanding of what privilege would be useful to have assigned is also quite a difficult task. And we know from our user research that admins are struggling with understanding the whole structure. And what they use today is the documentation, but it's of course not the ideal experience, and we would prefer the UI to be more self-explanatory. So the UI that they would see today is a dialog, and they just can create a new role, but there is not much guidance on like what role would be useful for a particular person. And the result is that a lot of users, non-admin users, would see this sort of empty state that they have to change their role because they are lacking some sort of privileges to complete a certain task. So then they have to request it, and then they don't know who to request it from. So it's a whole pain point that we are addressing on multiple fronts, actually. But one of the fronts that I wanted to share is a design exploration we had now to actually build a team in our provider area that I mentioned before, so that an admin would create a marketplace admin and roles that are useful for collaboration. So I hope that, no, actually it's not very well visible here, but you would see that there's the default role selected for them. They can edit, of course, they can change the name, the privileges assigned, so the flexibility is still there. But if they want to use our guidance, they would actually just need to assign a certain user to that role and have other recommended roles for them. So we can probably recognize those patterns from some customer-facing products. It's not that innovative. It's just something that we want to bring to an enterprise SaaS product that is not so obvious. And a bit more on how we work and what is our process. I think I have to speed up a little bit. So we work in product trios. So in each project, we would have an engineering, design, and product manager representatives, and they would join together. They would have shared ownership of the product. So there's not one person who would be the decision maker and define the requirements. We are all in it together. And for some projects, one would take more lead, and for others, another one. So actually, any trio member can write a product requirements doc. So a PRD, it can be a designer. It will most likely, most often be a product manager because that is their core job, but each one of us can impact that. And that is not only unique to Snowflake, of course, and the things that I will mention here are actually not created by Snowflake as a process. It's just pieces of different practices that we pull together and work with that. So I think this chart was designed by our former head of design, Josh Jenkins, and it shows very well that we have 3 phases of each project. So we go from discovery through solution exploration to execution, but the phases actually overlap. So in each of the phases, you would take some parts from the previous one or the upcoming ones. It means that in discovery, when we are actually working on defining the problem that we want to solve, we're understanding who is it important for to solve, and we're doing customer research to learn more about that. Then we go to solution exploration and we think about how we will actually solve this problem, and that is the part mostly led by design. But there is also engineering work involved in saying how we are going to build that. And we can go back to discovery and say, okay, we need more answers, right? And then we will pull from that phase and go back to the customers. Or we will go a little bit to executive thinking and thinking how we will actually going to build that. And we also have a process of reviews. Reviews in some organizations can be quite a burden, and depends on how fast projects are going. In our case, bigger projects that would go through reviews usually takes several months. So there's not so many meetings, and there is a very clear leadership group that would be the reviewer and giving us a green or red light to either proceed with a certain project or go take a step back and rethink it. So at the discovery phase, we would go through a concept review, and that would be defining if the problem is well defined, if there are success metrics. And we would present the PRD and the very initial design to solve the problem. Then design review would be much more polished and with one approach that we actually want to tackle, again, led by designers mostly. And then launch review would be just before the launch, when it's actually built. And another last important thing from the process is the previews. So we release things to private preview first, and that is mainly to learn. And the bar to actually release something and the burden of reviews is much lower on the very initial stage, so that we can actually ship fast and learn fast and fail fast. And then we go to public preview, which is actually every customer that didn't opt out. So it's almost all of our customers. And then general availability is when you cannot actually opt out. And it's very important for a data product to go to preview and do this proof of concept, because it's extremely hard to test it on prototypes, because for every customer the UI looks very differently with their data. So it's much more efficient for us to actually learn from something that is possible to interact with.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk more about how we manage design quality and what design quality actually means for us, from the organizational standpoint and from the cultural standpoint. And one of the things which Aga already mentioned, we have pretty stable definition of what the quality is. And you see a lot of things there, some obvious. But remember, we are SaaS product. Why we have aesthetics, why you have simplicity, how it is important. Are all of those of the same weight? Well, for us, yes. And that's because while we're building tools, we're trying to build tools which actually are chosen by people and which people build use with pleasure. And we believe that quality plays an important role in basically making people not only use product because they provide certain functionality, but also the feeling which it provides is also something which is very important. To illustrate that, we built this presentation, this deck, with a tool called AI Presenter, which is, it's very simple, but a very unique tool. And we decided to devote one slide to it because it's actually, even though it doesn't have a lot of features, it's missing collaboration, it's missing so many things. But what's great about this tool is that it allows you to focus on narrative, and also it's kind of beautiful in the way it works. You have to use it to actually recognize how beautiful it is. But because of that, we decided to use it, and we actually now recommending it on the conference, right? And this is exactly what happens with Snowflake. Our customers using Snowflake, and they realized that it's very they love working with it, and then therefore they recommend it. And also when they're moving from one job to another, they're saying, hey, we would like to use the same system which we used in previous company. And that's what we believe quality is. And I was recently at the summit, which we have. It's like a WWDC, but for Snowflake, basically. And it's so we have a lot of customers, we have a lot of developers coming there, and our partner companies. There is a lot of startup ecosystem. And I was impressed how excited our customers are. It shouldn't be surprising for me. But it's sometimes kind of very refreshing to see that there are maybe customers who are more excited about the tool than the person who's kind of building the tool, helping to build the tool. So that was the atmosphere there. And what we believe is very essential in the way we position people in the product team is that we expect everybody to have a very deep sense of ownership. And by that, and ownership, we never have really like handoffs. Like we do have those different phases, but designers never hand off work from, let's say you don't have UI designer who's UX designer who's handing off work to UI designer or and then handing off to design prototyper and then handing off to engineering. We try to basically have just one position called product designer. The product designer owns the product from the very beginning to the very end. I mean, hopefully not to the end, but the feature, basically they own the features. So it's nobody's title. And with ownership, I think from the designer's perspective, what's important is that you feel that the product you own is something you're proud of. And therefore, we basically put great attention to craft. And we want our designers to be very proud of what they're building. So we care about the details. We care about things like typography. We care about things like alignment and other things. To almost feel because we believe that quality products are the products which you're proud of, and you can almost want to put a picture on, like architects put a signature on, like architects put a signature on their work, like for example, Frank Lloyd Wright have this little red brick which he put in every building, which he was proud of, which he designed. And even in engineering, it's this is very hardcore engineering. Mercedes AMG have this idea of one signature, one engineer per one engine. So the engineer who is responsible for the final assembly of the engine, their signature is on the little plaque on the engine because they are so proud of the work. And this is what we want to recreate at Snowflake, although we don't sign our UIs, not yet maybe. And the way we ship products, I said a bit about this process and about these different reviews. What's really striking for me, moving through different industries, was how much attention is being put on details. And the details which in many other companies you might feel we can fix it later, I don't know, alignment. And you might ask, why is it so? Well, because we believe that those little details actually matter a lot. And while there is a lot of pressure in the industry to ship things fast, we don't want to move too fast. We want to get fast to this early phase, which is we're giving the feature to small selected group of customers just to get feedback, but just few customers. But then it's not automatic that this product goes to beta. Before beta, we really want to have things fixed. And because we don't want to just build products, which we don't want to do this, right? So, yeah, you might ask, hey, how fixing the alignment is why is it so important for the business? Well, we think it's it's like with broken windows in the different neighborhoods of the city. If you not fix it, it brings more problems later. It's same as in criminology, you have this theory that if you don't fix small crimes, which are easy to fix, I don't know, graffiti, vandalism, this type of things, then you have larger crimes. They start to emerge, and you have demoralized society or demoralized area, which is very hard to manage. So this is what we want to avoid at Snowflake. And while we are a fast growth product, we also try not to grow too fast, to not lose that spirit. So our team is very small. It's basically 30 people, because we don't want to dilute the culture with just adding too many people. And this is very important that we're growing mindfully, because we are one of the handful of companies which didn't have layoffs so far, thanks to that kind of wise decisions of just growing in a mindful way. despite our business and product growing very fast. Well, while designers are like, as you see, the team is quite small for the large product, we try not to have built ivory towers. Sometimes designers work in the kind of isolation from the rest of the team, or they work as a service. We don't want to be in any of those areas. We don't want design to be as a service to engineering and product, but we also don't want designers to be like kind of the separate org with their own processes, with their own metrics. Whenever we think about metrics, we try to have shared metrics. Whenever we want to have like hiring process, we have shared process with engineering, with design. We try to collocate engineering and design so they can work together and they can make, the small fixes. You cannot really do it like, if the engineer is far away. We try to encourage experimentation. And that sometimes includes like even going beyond what is, let's say, design system. Because sometimes if you're designing something new, completely new, you cannot be limited, and we tolerate things like this in our UI. Of course, at some point we'll unify it, but we try to encourage experimentation, and even though sometimes some things might not look exactly the same, and there's a reason why those two looks different, but I will skip that because we are pretty close to the end of the talk. And one of the important, if you have an experimentation, allow experimentation, one of the very important things is that people are brave enough to experiment. So we have this no-blame culture, so where failure is a part of the process. And whenever I do, for example, performance evaluations of my team, I'm more worried if they do not have failures than they have failures, and try to coach the team to also always have failure and think about epic failures they have during their previous quarter. So it's important that it's not only encouraged, but failure is celebrated, because this is how you learn, this is how you set ambitious goals. If you don't fail, you don't do that. And finally, and that's probably the most important thing, it's like there is no true ownership without agency. So if you, design team, have a seat at the table, but they have no vote there, or no right to say veto and say things that doesn't work, then it's like, there's no need for there's no use for this seat at the table. It's more important having something to say. And we're lucky enough that at Snowflake, this is recognized and supported across the company, that design is seen as important part of the trio and equal part of the trio. We're not design-led like Airbnb, but we're trying to be highly collaborative. All the functions have equal vote. And so quality is basically a way, we believe that it's a way of working. It's not like a process, it's not like a function. It's more like a way of working. And you can learn more about our culture from this book. This is a book of our CEO. And you can learn more about how we work together in this company. So thank you very much for today. It's a great pleasure that so many people stayed, even though we are out of time. And if you have any questions, please ask them now. But I also have one more thing. We're hiring product designers, and there is if you scan this code, you can actually see more about our company, and you can also see more. And our design team in Warsaw created a special deck for you there, where you can basically learn the people who work there and learn more about us. And yeah, that's all there. Thank you.
Hello. Sorry, my microphone is not. Oh, it's working. Okay, thank you. Thank you for being here. Do you have any questions here? That's a code
There's
magic.
one there.
Yes, there's a few, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Hi, thank you very much for the nice presentation. And I have a question, to what extent is Snowflake empowered? Like you say, you have product trios, so are they given a problem, a metric to move, or a particular project and task? Thank you.
I'm not sure if I understood the question. Did you?
Maybe I will try to answer, and you tell me whether that was the answer to your question. So the product trios are focused around user journeys. That was your question, right? What's the problem is, right?
Usually when they are starting working on a project, do you present them some problem or metric to move, or you say you have to create this and that thing because we decided?
No, product trios actually are very independent, and we try to put them in the, let's say, for example, Aga is in a trio, which is responsible for enabling business users and user onboarding. And this trio is actually like faced with a general problem, and this trio is stable and works on this problem across the long period of time. Do you want to add something to it, maybe?
Did you ask about the customers also, how we talk to them and what we present to them, or more to the reviewers?
More to the reviewers and to the processes within your company. Is it that you are working independently with some particular problem or metric, or you are given the projects from some top product manager?
Okay, now I get it. So, in general, we are responsible for discovering the problem. So, having the customer interviews as well. There are some business metrics that are for the whole product area, key success metrics that can guide us. So that, for example, we know that people drop off on a certain task or something is very complicated for them. But it would be also raised on the planning meetings. So we would define during quarterly planning what is the main focus that we should take on. So in general, there's a lot of conversations, but there's no brief or something that people will just tell us to do.
Thank you.
Okay.
There's one on the left.
Thank you very much. I have a question about hiring. My question is, what if I would like to work with you, but I have NDAs for all my projects because I work for Motorola, banks, and etc. And how will you check my skills, and what does the recruitment path look like then?
I can take that. I used to work in the direct competitor of Snowflake. I used to work on BigQuery at Google. I was obviously not showing BigQuery, but there's probably something which you already launched, which you can show. There is probably we don't need to see everything. Definitely we don't want to see something which we shouldn't see. But we expect you to be fair. But let's say you can create some presentation which tells what was your process, and you can show us launched product. And you can tell us how did you launch it. That's one way. Or maybe there are some products, some things which you launched before. What we care about is we care for things which are launched or built, because we want people to drive and build things here at Snowflake. And but we also not expect candidates. We don't do design exercises very specifically because we don't want people to do something. We want to be fair to candidates and do not ask people to more work than we already put in the process as well ourselves.
Especially that our process is quite heavy on both ends, and that is purposeful.
We want to also have good match between both us and also the candidates. So we give candidate, I believe, good experience. But it's also we spend a lot of time together before we decide on both sides. But if we decide we go with the candidate, we expect to be together for a while.
Okay, thank you for the answer. But can I ask one more? Okay, thank you for this. But if I work for the banks or maybe for Motorola or Roche, and I work with internal project, and I can show nothing. So I have NDA for this. So then how the process part to look like? I can share my projects.
I would say
I have some concept, of course, in Behance or Dribble, but
I would say, to be honest, that we do have to see something. So, it's hard to base if we hire someone or not based on hypothetical testimonials or a description of a project. So you can think of what you can actually show during a presentation versus send out, because sometimes these are people treat it differently. So they present something, but they don't send it to us. And the hiring interviews are not recorded. So, but yeah.
Yeah, you can blur out also some information. If there is usually what's secret about those internal projects is the data which you have there, and then you can either fake it and say, okay, this is fake data, or you can blur out the parts which are not.
Thank you so much.
So one more hand before. Who was that? Yeah.
Hi, thank you for your presentation. I would like to ask about those trios. It sounds like it may reduce the empowerment of other members of the team. Like, you know, there is a one representative of designers, one representative on engineers. How do you handle it to make the whole team involved?
As a design team or?
As a design team, yeah.
For example. So the designers would think separately. So we would have design critiques and meetings with the design team separately, but each one of us is in the trio also.
And also designers, each designer is in different trios. So it's not like that there is one central trio for the whole UI. It's like per project. So for example, Aga is working on onboarding, and there is Krzysztof who's working on publishing, and they are like parts of two different trios.
Yeah, but is it possible that there is a trio that is working on some feature, but there are other designers that are working on this feature, but are not in the trio, and the one designer is representing them in the trio?
No.
It is possible for engineers, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe more for engineers, right?
Yeah,
it's
but
handled
in
there.
general, yeah, we're trying not to like overlap. So it happens, for example, that there's a UI platform team, so people who create solutions for the whole platform. So a pattern that would be useful for all areas, and with them we overlap. But we really try to communicate so that we don't do the same work twice, and once in silo and the other one like on the platform level. So it is a challenge, and you have to like think about it and moderate it. But I don't think it happens that two trios would work on the same feature exactly or the same problem to solve. But also it's important that, for example, me and Christoph are working in the same product area, so we are still very much connected, although we have separate trios. We have like we're in sync, if that makes sense.
Thanks.